I'm Sacramento County District Attorney Tin Ho. Thank you for listening to the Justice Journal podcast. This podcast series engages our community in issues that impact public safety and shares how our office is ensuring justice in the courtroom and in the community while achieving our mission of Semper Justitia, which in Latin means always just.
Thank you for joining us for the Justice Journal podcast. My name is Courtney Martin. I'm the Deputy District Attorney here at the Sacramento DA's office. I'm currently the lead prosecutor for the DUI/DUID misdemeanor prosecution, education, and outreach program. Funding for this program comes from a grant through the California Office of Traffic Safety through the National Traffic Safety Administration. This podcast is a part of a four-part series on driving under the influence and driving under the influence of drugs. And we'll be releasing this podcast throughout the coming year. Today, we're joined by three special guests. We have Rhonda Campbell from MADD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and her parents, Larry and Kathy Harris.
So I want to let you guys introduce yourselves, and then we're going to talk a little bit about your story and your role with MADD. So Rhonda, if you want to start with you.
Yeah, my name is Rhonda Campbell. I am the California State Victim Services Manager for Mothers Against Drunk Driving. I've held that position for almost 8 years now. Working with victims is my passion, and that's why I do what I do. And we'll talk more about that as this conversation goes along.
Yeah. Larry and Kathy, if you want to introduce yourselves.
Sure. I'm Larry Harris. Unfortunately, I lost a daughter to a drunk driver in 1981. It's been a long time ago, and I'm always eager to speak to anyone about the hazards of driving under the influence of drugs, alcohol, or distracted driving.
Yeah. Anything you want to add, Kathy?
Yes, I'm Kathy Harris, Larry's wife, and we are here to help prevent drunk driving. We lost our daughter in 1981, so we're really involved with MADD and try to make all the progress we can to help other families.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Irene, and we want to hear from you, all three of you, what you want to share about what happened back then, and then we'll talk some about MADD.
I was a teenager when my sister was killed by a drunk driver, and my parents, being good parents, they shielded me from a lot of what was going on, which I'm thankful for now. But little did I know that at 15 years old, I was beginning my training to be an advocate for victims of drunk driving and impaired driving crashes. So I'm going to let Mom and Dad tell the story of Irene and what happened, and that just ties in why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
We were in the midst of raising two teenage daughters in 1981, and it was one of the highlights of my life. Some of my friends would say, you don't have a boy there, and I said, what, I didn't miss a thing. I got news for you. But Irene was the youngest, 12-year-old. Rhonda was 15 and wanting to be a licensed driver soon. So that was something that was in our plans, was to teach her to drive, be part of society. And they were both so vibrant, involved in everything at school. They were in band, they were in sports, they were in you could just name it. Irene, the youngest one, was she was an all-star pitcher on our Bobby Sox league in town. Rhonda was also a very good ball player. They excelled in everything, and Kathy and I would sit around sometimes in the evening by ourselves and talk about how we did a good job. Our girls were eager to be a part of society and be productive. Irene was sixth grade. She was her sixth grade teacher would take her from her school where she was at to one of the neighboring schools, and she worked with the challenge students. She loved it. She would come home and she would tell us how they loved her, how she loved working with the kids, and that she had already decided when she became an adult that's the path she would like to take. And so at 12 years old, she had chosen her path. So Irene was a lot different from her sister. So similar and so different. But we were probably considered overprotective of our kids. We didn't let them go with other people in vehicles, even family. We were very protective. And what happened with this was we had Rhonda was in the hospital. She was in being examined for possibly appendicitis or something going on that they had to keep her overnight with. And this was August 26th in 1981. Hot weather. And we'd had Irene up for quite a while with us at the hospital and back. But they wouldn't let her visit her sister because of her age. So we went home that evening, and Kathy, she's just, having a kid in the hospital was terrible. So we decided we'd go back up there and see Rhonda. And our neighbor, who was a very good friend, offered to take Irene with her and her daughter to Florin Road. Now, Florin Road was South Sacramento. We were in North Sacramento, so it wasn't that far. And she said she would get her something to eat. And that sounded good. So we relented and let her go. Our neighbor's daughter came down to the house to get Irene to take her back up there, and I was taking a shower, getting ready to go back to the hospital, and I heard them leaving outside in the yard, and I slid the bathroom window open, and I said, I tell Joyce to be careful tonight because we don't want two kids in the hospital. And they laughed about it naturally, and so okay. And I said, I love you.
And she said, I love you too. And off she went, and we didn't think that much about it. But we got home by 9 o'clock, and Irene was supposed to be home at 9. And nobody answered up at Joyce's. And we called, and finally I got an answer. And it was the coroner. He was there, and that's how we found out that Irene had been in a crash. He didn't know her name. He called her Jane Doe, but we knew she was with Joyce, so we knew it was her, and that she had been taken to the hospital. So, of course, we loaded up and went to UC Davis. And when we got there, they shoved us into a little room, and then they come in and said that we had to identify Irene before we could see her. Well, we did. We told them what she had on and everything, and sure enough, they said, okay, it's her. They thought she was older than that, but so
They brought out a pair of her
shoes.
tennis shoes, her athletic shoes that the Jane Doe was wearing, and they had a name on them of the little boy she liked, and that's what they handed us at the counter. So they definitely identified her as being the owner of those clothes. And they took us on back, and we tried to see her, and they was reluctant to let us see her. She was in ICU. She had her
Spleen.
she had lacerated liver. Her spleen had been removed. She had head injuries, but they hadn't determined how severe they were at that time. And they gave Kathy, some great people there, they gave her a shot, and I think it was Valium, and it was a blessing because she needed something besides just sitting there, and the doctor had come in and talked to us and said it was not, it was bad, she was bad. So the nurse took me back finally. I kept asking her to see her, and I went without Kathy. She didn't know I was going back there. And I seen her in the ICU, and if it hadn't been for her hair, I wouldn't have known her. She had so many tubes, so many hoses. Her little face was just swollen up so big I could tell she had head injuries because of some of the lacerations, and I knew that our lives at that time was changed no matter what happened. And I reached out and touched her little hand, and it was cold, real cold. And then I went back outside, and seemingly the doctor followed me. We sat back down, and he didn't even say anything. He just went like this.
We knew she was gone.
She was gone.
We never seen her again until her funeral. But we had to go home that night. We had to go home with neither one of our daughters. Rhonda was still in the hospital. Our baby was gone. And open the garage and go in, and there's 2 bicycles, skates, all their stuff they played with. Open the back door, there's 4 chairs at our table. Walk down the hall, there's her bedroom with all her stuff. Everything she left just the way it was. And nothing's ever been the same since. They say time heals. It does in a way. I mean, our life has changed. We've got grandkids, great-grandkids, and I love them all. But it doesn't take the place of our baby. And
I woke up in my hospital room the next morning very early. My dad and my uncle were standing next to the hospital bed, and I knew something was wrong, and I asked what's wrong, and Dad said, nothing's wrong, your mom wants you to come home. So we went home, and we got through the front door, and I just felt the heaviness in my chest, and I knew something bad was coming, and they sat me down on the couch and said, we have bad news. Joyce and Irene were both killed by a drunk driver last night. And, you hear things in your life that never leave you. It brings back the emotion. But seeing my parents broken that morning, I'll never forget that.
When I was in the hospital, the deputy coroner was there. As we did know him. His daughter had played softball with ours, and we didn't know that till I seen him. And I asked him what happened out there, and he said it was a drunk driver. And I said, how do you know he was drunk? I mean, this is fresh. And he said, because the officers that responded tested him. And he had a 0.16 blood alcohol content. Ironically, he had a few scratches. He wasn't hurt bad. He killed 2 people. And that's how we knew that he was a drunk driver. And he was a repeat offender. He was a local. And he was in a room just not too far from where my daughter died, getting a Band-Aid put on, I guess. I don't know, it wasn't much, but I knew then, knowing that our family dynamic has changed dramatically. I knew that the moment I knew that I had to go home. That was the coldest place I'd walked into in my life, and it was August. It was hot. I knew that we had the funeral to arrange, and that was, for some reason, foremost on my mind. I guess it should have been, but I just knew that we'll never be the same. We were a small family, 4 of us, but it was tight. And I knew that the family dynamic, reaching out to grandparents, my wife's family lived close, to my parents, all of us, was going to be changed from that point on. For our friends, I knew that it was going to be changed, and it was. It wasn't because we were standoffish, it was because they were. They didn't know how to talk to us anymore. So our social lives changed in that moment. In that moment, we were financially and emotionally destroyed. And we had a young girl at home that wanted to learn to drive, and she wanted her dad to teach her to drive. And these things were just, I was just compounding. It was just eating me up, and Kathy was bad. We arranged a funeral.
The worst thing ever. It's the worst thing ever in my life. They took us in there. Now you pick out a casket for your baby. Nobody should have to do that. Nobody.
Can I ask you, was there a court case?
Yes.
There was a court case, and
Very short.
and it
but
was
there was.
it was a court case of sorts, I guess. You know, he was arrested naturally. Then he was released on $5,000 bail that night, same night, and he didn't even have time to get sober. But we did have a bail hearing, and they raised it to $7,500 or something like that. So that was about that. The DA, the deputy DA that I talked to at the time, said that they would. At one point, he told me there was most likely to be a plea bargain on that, and I disagreed with it at the time. Naturally, I didn't want. I thought it could be handled better. 2 people died. I knew a plea bargain would be throwing something out, and they did. They threw one of the manslaughters out. He ended up, I think he got 2 years and 6 months. But we didn't have the rapport with our DA like we do now. They wouldn't talk to us. I called down there. We pushed for the bail hearing, and we got it. And afterwards, I called the DA downtown here, and I told him, I said, I want to thank you for doing that. And he said, okay, you're welcome. He said, but I want you to know that it wasn't the pressure you put on us that caused us to do that. And they let him stay out for 6 months because his wife was pregnant when he killed our daughter. And the baby was born, and they let him stay out to bond with his new child. And the day that we went to court here for his sentencing, when they took him, was ironically March 13th,
Her birthday.
our daughter's birthday.
And he only served 18 months for killing 2 people. Yeah.
It's changed so much now, and thanks to people that MADD was virtually non-existent. Candlelight had formed MADD the year before, so the representation was very little. What I felt like the law was not on our side. I really felt like that. I mean, I knew I was a victim. I knew we were victims, but it took a while for me to get that out of my mind. It's out now. We work now. We offer our services to speak to people, DUI offenders, cadets, law enforcement, Air Force. We've seen a lot of it, and it's still hard to talk about what happened to our kid. But our older daughter here, now she wanted to drive. That was something that came up, and she wanted a Camaro. And I'm supposed to be the strength in that family, right? Old style dad. couldn't do it. I couldn't teach her to drive. I didn't want her out there at all. So the strength in our family at that point was Mom. She taught her to drive, and it was okay. It was,
But MADD has come so far. They
Yeah.
do so much now, and we've learned so much. I think it would have been a lot different if we knew then what we know now.
Yeah.
We didn't have any idea about the system. We hadn't had anything like this happen, so partly our fault. We just didn't get in like we should have. And
TUI is a TUI is a murderer for families. I mean, it just kills families, and
Yeah.
like I said, it's far-reaching. It reaches everyone in the family. It reaches the friends. I had friends that wouldn't talk to me, and we were not strangers to some alcohol use on our recreation and when we went, but we weren't abusers like that. So, Rhonda was our oldest daughter was. She was determined to drive, and she did, and that was a good thing, and tried to get back to as much normal as we could. But going back to the day that our daughter died, I knew that everything was different, and that was driving me crazy to know that Rhonda was out there on the roads, and to know that Rhonda was 16 years old, and that 16-year-old people sometimes don't do everything they're supposed to do. So that's why we need to talk to our kids these days and tell them these things, you know. And she was good. Rhonda did good.
she was a good girl.
She only banged up one fender, but she was good. And our family now is tight. It's good. It's changed. Where our goal now is to see that other people don't have to suffer that same thing we went through. People here, the people we know, people we don't know, have to go through something like people lose children, but to have one murdered by someone, and that's the way we look at it, because it's a law, it's a crime. By someone who's so uncaring. When they drink, drive, they get out behind the wheel, they are committing a crime. They know it's illegal. They do it anyway.
And they destroyed lives.
And we have good things happening now with some of our DAs. Our DAs are getting some murder convictions, and thanks to the people that are working for us in that respect. And MADD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, is just a great organization, and our hearts with this girl. She volunteered to speak one time and told us about it, and we said, all the years we didn't do that. Went to watch her, and she spoke, and my heart was. So we got involved, and then she came in the house one day and she said, "Mom, Dad, I got a job with MADD." It was a part-time job, I think, but she said, "Now I can do something for Irene."
Yep.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your work, about MADD, about the Candlelight Vigil.
Sure. So, part of my passion for advocacy comes because of what happened to my family in the judicial system at the time. My parents weren't given a voice. They weren't allowed to give an impact statement. They weren't allowed to vocalize what their feelings were with our prosecutor at the time. And that's never set well with me. And so all these years later, the door opens for me to become an advocate for people who are in the same boat. And my promise to them and to Irene is I will never let that happen to another family. Our voices will be heard in the courtrooms, in the DA's offices, on TV if we have to. People need to understand the devastating consequences of a drunk driving crash. So I'm lucky. I got the job. I'm lucky to do it. I'm happy. I feel like it's a privilege.
When did you start working with MADD?
So my official start with MADD was 7-8 years ago. I started part-time as a victim advocate, worked my way up to full-time, and now I oversee the state, the entire state of California Victim Services. And it's just an honor for people to put their trust in me and let me walk them through what is no doubt going to be the most difficult journey of their life. And I have people that they're my family. You know, and it's a family you don't choose, and it's a family I'm sorry I have to be in with them, but they're my family. Yeah, we stay in touch.
So what does your kind of day-to-day look like when you're doing your work?
So when people are impacted by a drunk driving crash, our hope is that they've been referred to us as quickly as possible. We work with local law enforcement. We work with offices like yours. And we have a national helpline that's 24 hours. So when somebody calls for help, they'll be connected to me very shortly, within 24 hours. I take the call and try to assess immediate needs, which most of the time are mental support and financial support.
And is that just folks in Sacramento that are making those calls, or other throughout the state?
Yeah, I get the calls for the entire state, and then I refer them out to advocates in their local areas that specialize in things that are happening there. So I can help from anything from mental health services, support groups, financial resources, counseling, a liaison between my victim and the DA's office, things like that.
Are the MADD advocates volunteers? How does somebody become an advocate for MADD?
So our advocates, some are volunteers and some are employees. We do have a great training program. If somebody's interested in working with MADD, we'll vet them, put them through the training, and then of course we can always use the help. As of right now, I'm the only advocate in our part of the state, and I cover everything from Fresno to the Oregon border. It's all my territory. Okay. So we're busy.
Yeah, that's a significant
we're
area. So tell us what is going on, particularly this month for DUI Awareness Month.
So we have a few things going on. One of our newest campaigns is Illuminate California. We have landmarks, businesses, private residences across the state of California. Tomorrow night, Friday the 13th of December, we'll be illuminating in red to show support for MADD and victims of impaired driving crashes. In January, we'll hold our annual Candlelight Vigil. That's something we do every year. It's probably one of my favorite events because it's very small and personal, and we try to keep it victims only and people that work with them so that they have a night to reflect and remember, and we can really honor them and their families and their loved ones in a way that makes them feel good and reminds them that they're remembered and we're still fighting for you.
And where does that take place?
We are lucky enough to have a really great relationship with the CHP in our state, and the CHP Academy has been wonderful at not only engaging with us and sending us help and support, they let me use their facilities. So I'll be having my Candlelight Vigil there at their facility in West Sacramento.
Okay, that's great. Yeah. Well, as you've both all alluded to, the DA's office takes drunk driving while impaired by drugs very seriously. So one of the things I wanted to mention during this podcast is some of the sentencing and what happens, the legal consequences of a DUI, which is really important for the public to know as we talk about DUI Awareness Month. So for our listeners, if someone is convicted of a DUI for the first time, they face several days in jail. They face fines, a license suspension. They're required to take a class regarding DUI prevention. And then if they get a subsequent DUI conviction, those consequences increase. The amount of jail time increases, the length of the license suspension, the amount of fines, the length of the class. If someone has a fourth DUI conviction within 10 years, then they face a felony sentence at that point, and the maximum of that felony sentence may be up to 3 years in prison. There's a separate set of consequences if someone is driving under the influence of drugs or alcohol, and that results in a collision with an injury. So that can be charged right off the bat as a felony, even if someone doesn't have a prior conviction for a DUI. The maximum sentence may be 3 years, although if they cause great bodily injury, it could be up to 6 years. There's also, if that collision results in the death of someone, as we've talked about today, then they can be charged and convicted of potentially manslaughter with sentences of up to 10 years. And if they have prior convictions for a DUI and they are in a collision that results in death, then they can be charged with murder. We call that a Watson murder. And unlike what we were talking about in Irene's case, where this person did a fairly minimal sentence, if they're convicted of what we call a Watson murder, their sentence can be 15 years to life. We call it a Watson murder because they receive what's called a Watson advisement. And that advisement is when they were previously convicted of a DUI, they were told, if you do this again, if you are drinking and driving or on drugs while driving, if you're driving while impaired and you kill someone, then you can be charged and go to prison for murder. So they're told that, they're advised that. And then if that happens, we follow through on that. We charge them with murder. And as Larry said, we've gotten convictions on those cases, and people have been sentenced to those lengthier prison sentences based on those convictions. The DA's office also participates in a number of prevention efforts. We do the Real DUI Court program, where DAs, in my position, go into schools. They participate with guest speakers like Rhonda. And the students at these schools, they have really large assemblies, and they actually watch a DUI offender do a plea. So there's a judge there, there's all the court staff there, there's a defense attorney, a prosecutor, and the students watch this actual DUI offender enter a plea and then be sentenced by the judge. So they get that impact of seeing the criminal justice system at work. We participate with the Youth Academy. That's a academy for students throughout Sacramento County who want to learn more about the criminal justice system. And there's a whole class about DUI offenses. We educate students about that. We have a Citizens Academy here at the DA's office where adult citizens in Sacramento learn about the criminal justice system, and they have a class about DUIs. And we also participate through police training. So we go to law enforcement agencies, so their police academies or their ongoing trainings, and teach those young officers about how to investigate and spot DUIs. So it's really important. DUIs, from what I've heard, is, and I'm a little bit new to this assignment, but it's the leading cause of death of young people between 16 and 25. And that's huge. I was looking at some of the numbers again. I'm just sort of new to getting educated on this, but in 2022 there was 35 fatalities right here in Sacramento County. So this is something that's affecting our community, dozens of families every year. And so we really appreciate you guys talking to us about this. Is there anything you want to add about prevention? I know you work a lot with the DA's office here, about any of the prevention programs that are out where we're out in the community.
So MADD actually has a lot of prevention programs, and we gear them towards different levels of education. So starting with junior high and high school, we have a power of students, power of youth educational program. We go to the school, we talk to them about underage drinking and drug use and how it can affect you in the future. And because the studies are now telling us that children are experiencing thoughts or experiences with drugs and alcohol a lot younger, this year MADD actually put out a new program for elementary school where we really start teaching them young about the dangers. And it's very age appropriate, it's scientific, and it's very effective. And then to go with all of those programs, we have something called Power of Parents that we deliver to parents to help them understand how to talk to their children, have those open lines of communication so that they do rely on their parents to get a safe ride or whatever's going on so that they can stay safe. And the thing I love about those the most is MADD never charges for those services. We'll come to your business, your school, your home, wherever we're needed, and we will put on a really nice program for your kids.
Yeah. And I know you, Larry and Kathy, have been involved in this effort as well. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your involvement with MADD or prevention efforts, or is it mostly working with Rhonda and kind of through her?
We work with her. She will ask us if we want to participate in certain things. Like this today, she asked us to do this, and we're always eager to do it. we have been on DUI checkpoints.
Mhm.
I've been, we both spoke to DUI offenders and had them sign the Watson
Yeah.
when they attended that.
When you're at the checkpoint, what role do you play?
We just pass out flyers.
Okay.
We stand with the officer,
Yeah.
right by the officer, and
Yeah.
And you pass out flyers to everyone that goes through the checkpoint? Okay.
Actually, yeah, when they stop them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then we give it to them. Some of
Okay.
them don't want it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's got to be really impacting, though.
Yeah, it is impacting, and to work with the officers is impactful too. I mean, you see them behind the badge, to see their eyes and to know that they're committed to doing what they're doing, and
they do a good job.
yeah, it's good for the community. And I know the community might not like it sometimes because it makes them late for where they're going, but
Yeah.
hey, deal
Yeah.
with it.
It's important.
Yeah, we like to get involved in everything we can.
Yeah.
And Rhonda's been our inspiration. This has been my inspiration here. Kathy has shown the strength that I didn't know she had. I knew she was strong, but she was so close to her girls, and anytime she wants to get involved with it, she does. And
Yeah.
her daughter takes good care of her. So.
Good. Well, for all three of you, what would be a call to action to the community? How can community members get involved in this effort?
What I would say, first of all, is driving under the influence is one of the very few things in our life that is 100% preventable 100% of the time. Plan ahead. Arrange for those sober rides. Use Uber, use Lyft, take the ride shares, and please talk to your kids. Give them the tools they need to get out of an uncomfortable situation that may ultimately harm them or worse.
Yeah. Anything that you would add, Kathy and Larry?
That's exactly what they need to do. Talk to their kids like
Yeah,
like
we did.
like-
We always talked to ours about that even before anything had happened. But
the
it's
greatest
just,
fear.
yeah, they
Something happened, and they said, in the blink of an eye, it happened. And talk to your kids, get them involved with MADD. MADD has information everywhere out there. Look online, find something, and live it. It's
Yeah.
important.
And like Rhonda said, make a plan. And Rhonda laughs at me for this, but I always say if you can afford to go out and drink, you can afford to get a Lyft or a Uber or make arrangements. It's
Yeah.
not compared to what it's going to cost you if you get caught
Yeah.
is minimal.
Yeah. It's absolutely true. All right. Any last things to add?
Thank you for giving us
Thank
this
you.
platform.
Yeah.
It was wonderful to meet you. And
Yeah.
I will just say that, and you don't have to put this in, but my relationship with this office is amazing. You have some incredible people who are dedicated to the work they do, and they take my victims into account every single time.
Yeah.
They are treated with respect. They are given a voice, and we are fought for in the courtroom. And I can't thank you guys enough for that.
Yeah, I can say I'd mentioned I'm new to this assignment. I'm excited to get on board, and some of the most impacting victim impact statements I've heard over the years in court are from families that have been impacted from DUIs because they absolutely was out of the blue. They had no clue that their life was going to change, like you said, in an instant. And so I'll be just going about my daily business in court, and then a case gets called, and now I'm listening to this tragic story, and it's extremely powerful, and I know that our listeners are going to find this very powerful. So thank you all three for being here, and the DA's office hopes that our audience will share this and spread the information that we've gotten from Rhonda and Larry and Kathy today, and engage in the ways that they mentioned, talking to your kids, and also sharing this information about how to prevent this, as Rhonda said, completely preventable crime that has really tragic consequences. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Justice Journal podcast. You can find all of our episodes wherever you get your podcasts, and I hope you share them with your family, friends, and colleagues.